Howdy, true believers. This is Jim Lee here. I'm not normally like this. I've just been hanging around Stan Lee too much.
Fantastic, but not perfect.
I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn.
He thinks your daddy's comic books, fanboy. DC Comics.
Comic book store. Let's go.
Sensational, but not perfect.
Oh, the indignity!
I'm bleeding out my fucking balls, dude!
You know what, dude? I made that video, right? And every time that kid busts his balls on the skateboard and he's like crying, it makes me laugh every time. I don't know. I made the video. I put it in on purpose. I watched that video like 1,000 times, like making it and trying to make it link up and look good and edit it and stuff. And I still laugh every time that guy is grabbing himself, talking about he's bleeding. Dude. I can't stop laughing at that. It's so funny.
I think it's his scream, I'm bleeding out my balls, dude! And he's like running away. Just the sound of his voice. I'm just like, it's pure agony, but absolute, terror for him, but absolute comedic, gold for someone like us who I've never done that with a skateboard. I've hit myself on the shins and all kinds of other places, but never smacked myself there with a skateboard.
Yeah.
Other stuff, okay, we did all the time, so.
Oh, I got hit in the nuts. Especially like, we're the same age. You grew up in the 90s. You would just punch your friends in the nuts for no reason. Just cup check and just smack them, Yeah. It was always something like that. Or I ran over a curb on my bicycle and I nailed my nuts on the bike before. And it's, you were always getting nailed in the nuts. But I never really did much skateboarding. I tried because that was a cool thing to do in the 80s and the 90s. But like I fell off of it once. I was like, forget this, dude. I'm just gonna kill myself. I know it. That was it for me.
Oh, I loved it. I blew my knee out skating in a ditch, and that was pretty much the end of my skateboard career after that. But
my group of friends had another like outside circle of friends as well. And there was this guy that they called Fat Mike. And one day, this is when I was living in Victorville. So it's very much, think of like Las Vegas, but with a lot more meth and like no casinos. Yeah. So it's like, it's like North Las Vegas, right?
Well, I know Victorville, yeah.
Okay. So they have like these really hilly roads in certain spots of Victorville.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's asphalt, but there's no concrete. It's just bushes and stuff along, where you would have sidewalks. It's just bushes and just dirt. And Fat Mike rode his skateboard down one of these hilly hills, and hit a rock or a loose piece of asphalt or something, and just face first down the road and just grinded his teeth. So we always refer to somebody falling off their bicycle or off their skateboard as that guy just Fat Mike teeth grind. He grinded his teeth on the asphalt, dude. That sucked. But it's one of those things where it's like, all right, man, I'm not into skateboards, I'm cool with anything else, but skateboards just wasn't doing it for me. I was not gonna do it.
That was it for me, man. Like in the late 80s, early 90s, it was all about, Lance Mountain and Tony Hawk and Christian Hosoi and, Powell Peralta, Bones Brigade. I was like eating it up, the Swatch tour and stuff and going to events. And, I was decent. I was more of a street skater than I was, vert. But I remember trying to go. I had these two twins I grew up with, Levi and Abe, and their dad built a half pipe in their backyard. And I tried going down it. I ate crap so bad that I was just like, I knew from that point, I'm not going to be a vert skater. I just stay on the streets and just roll from there. And then, once I blew my knee out in a ditch, it was this concrete ditch over off of like Craig and Lamb. And my friends just left to go to 7-Eleven and get some super big gulps. and left me. And I just wanted to keep skating. Blew it out. I sat there baking in the sun for like 20 minutes before they came back. So that was my last time. And then flash forward, here I am. I just turned 49. I was 5 years ago or so. My uncle works for the school district, and at the end of the school year, whatever items are confiscated by the students, they let him take whatever he wants. So he had this badass freaking longboard, skate longboard with, big wheels, and he brought it over, and I was like, dude, let me have it. He's like, it's yours, bud. So I started skating on this thing again. I'm not doing tricks. I just want to skate. So I would take this thing, go down the driveway to go check the mail. I was doing it, like 2 times a week. Everything was cool. I'm cruising along. One day I go early in the morning, I go down, I hit a rock, I shot off that thing. This big body shot off that thing, slammed my shoulder on the ground, and all I hear is, ah! And I get up and I look, and there's a guy walking his dog, didn't even see it. And I just get up slowly, pick up the skateboard, check the mail real quick again, we go walk my wounds. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. No more skateboard for me.
I like how you try to play it off, man. Like when you're walking and you trip, you kind of do that little jog. No, nothing happened, right? But you try to play it off.
Rip me apart, bro. To this day, like, it crushes my soul thinking how bad I freaking wrecked on that thing. My shoulder hurt for like 3 weeks too. I remember it tore me apart because I love that. I mean, we would go to California and this place called Campland in San Diego, and I'm like riding that skateboard around, drinking a beer, just cruising on a freaking longboard. But I took that one eat crap moment, and I'm done. That's it.
That's all it takes, man. Especially at our age, that's all it takes. It's one little thing, like, forget it. Like,
I'm done.
Before, dude, you could just, like, you blow out your knee and you'll be fine because you were a kid after a while. But now it's like, I have like 4 beers at a party, and then I'm laying in bed for like 2 days, dude. I'm hurting after that.
Yeah,
it doesn't work for me anymore. Right?
Recovery time as you get older. And I try to like tell that to, like, I got a 19-year-old boy he's 20 in a few days, and then 14. And so my 19-year-old, we'll let him partake on occasion. If he's around us, we'll let him jump in a little bit. Here's a shot of vodka. You never had that before. Here's a shot of, tequila. Doing it with us so we can keep an eye on him. So he's not there doing it.
He's not outside partying. He's not going to get in a car or, do something stupid with his friends. Yeah.
Plus you're getting the kind of a drinker that he is. Because there's different levels of people. There's the sad person. There's the angry drunk. There's the nostalgic one, and so on. So trying to see when my kid, I'm lucky. He's the happy kind. He smiles and just talks and just loves life. So, well,
that depends, because you only give him a couple of drinks, dude. My dad would be a happy drunk until about beer 15. And then it's Vietnam vet drunk comes out. Oh, and it was a different story.
Yeah, the stuff comes back then, huh?
Yeah, it was fine. It'd be like dude. I loved it when he would drink. That sounds terrible, but I would, because he'd get really happy and lovey-dovey, and he would give me money, And I'd be like, all right, man, I got comic book money for comic book money. This is great. And then after it goes too far, it turns into like Vietnam dad, and it's like, all right, like this is getting scary, like. Yeah, then he becomes like angry and stuff like that. If there was phases, I could see like, okay, he's here, so he's okay. Oh, he's talking about Jesus and how much he loves God. All right, now I'm in trouble because I know what happens in 20 minutes. It's going to turn into Vietnam pretty soon.
Yeah, now he's like carving punji sticks in the garage.
Yeah. He pulls out his old like near necklace that he had in Vietnam or something.
Yeah. Which is where the Punisher got it from. Yeah,
so. Exactly.
Yeah, he actually knew Frank Castle during the time. So
man, you probably scared Frank Castle. My poor old man. He made it through the meat grinder, dude, but you don't make it out there. You don't make it out at 100%, dude. It takes something away from you. That's how it works. Anyways, are you talking about San Diego? Are you going to Comic-Con this year?
We're trying. I got some work commitments that I have to get taken care of. Being on vacation for the last couple weeks like this, and San Diego 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away. It's like
right around the corner, dude. Yeah.
I mean, we have the opportunity. My brother and I butter, so we're talking about it. But it's not. It probably won't be until that week of. And all of a sudden, it's like, you know what? Let's just go. and just roll.
Okay,
out.
so you're not going as a vendor. You just want to kind of just go and hang out, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm not doing the vendor thing. No, I try to keep that mostly. We really just keep that in Vegas.
Okay.
It's just so much to travel, and we're not in it for the money really. We're just in it for laughs and fun, and pass on the medium that we love to the next people, and just keep bringing people into the fold to read comics and read good comics and make suggestions for it. So as much as cool as it would be go to San Diego, I valued it one time, and like between booth prices and tickets and food and travel and bringing everything there and hotels, I mean, it came to like almost $8,000 if we were going to do something. And we're not a shop that's set up to make that kind of change. So it's like, even though it's not about the money, it's like at the same time we got to be smart about what we're doing. Not just it's like a trade-off. I don't want to trade stuff off for the experience. I've already been there 4 times, so.
So you're just gonna go and just go and hang out. That's because I was thinking about doing that too. I was trying to convince my wife, that we can go down there with the boys, and just because San Diego Comic-Con, I've gone almost every year from about 2002 till when COVID hit and everything shut down and we didn't have Comic-Con for a few years. I went every year except for once or twice. I've gone every year, either by myself as just a regular attendee, or going with like Torpedo and setting up. Like I went every year for like 20 years straight almost. So I've had the experience. I know what it is, but San Diego Comic-Con is my favorite convention to go to. Not so much for the convention itself, because we all know it's not very comic booky. Like the comic book section is getting smaller and smaller. The booth prices are getting way more expensive, like you were saying. It's crazy. So that makes prices higher. So it's harder to kind of really do comic book stuff there. And there's so much other stuff. There's panels, and you want to get exclusives, and you want to go, see a movie panel or this and this, right? But after the convention, dude, and everybody pours out across the street to like the gas lamp district, that's the best, dude. That afterlife, that nightlife is the best at any convention. Any convention you ever go to, San Diego has the best, because it's literally across the street, that gas lamp district, and you have like Padres Stadium there, but there's never a game really. There's been once or twice, and it was a disaster. But it's a college town, so it's all these bars, it's all these restaurants. It's great. It's the best. Any other convention that you go to, like, you're stuck with whatever the hotel has or whatever the convention center has in that area. It's always like fast food or something gross, right? There, it's like, it's bars, it's restaurants, there's like a movie theater there. There's 100,000 people. There's events happening here. There's a Hard Rock Cafe. There's events there. You will run into. I ran into all my favorite comic book like creators just walking on the streets.
Yeah,
movie stars just walking on the street. Everybody just kind of just blends in, but it's like the best. Like afterwards is San Diego. Everywhere else, man, you're just stuck. Like, you want to just go meet up at McDonald's or something? Like it's worst.
No, I completely freaking agree. It's as much about the show as going to the afterlife, convention circuit. If you're gonna go to San Diego, don't even bother getting there when the doors open at 10. Go at like 2.
Yeah.
Kick it with the show for a while, and then you have to go experience the Gaslight District. I mean, I was there the year Dark Knight released with Heath Ledger as Joker.
Yeah, I was there.
It was bonkers. Like, you remember they had the Batman signal on flame, like in several different locations, and they had some kind of a scavenger hunt that you could do late at night. To go around, and if you find the bat signals, you get something, and then you take it to the next one. You have to find the locations, and they had it was like clues on where to go to find them. And I mean, that's the night stuff, and we wouldn't get back to the hotel till like 1, 2 in the morning, and just, all right, well, what's tomorrow? Well, tomorrow's just we'll wake up when we wake up, grab a bite, and then just go back to the show and just goof off from there.
Yeah, I would look at the program and go, I don't need to be at the show until like noon because that's the next time something happens that I want to see.
Yeah,
because 5 days there is a lot.
A lot.
And I always went. My wife and I and our friends, we would always go a day early. So we would go on a Tuesday. We'd land there on a Tuesday, and we would leave on Monday just to avoid the hassle, right?
Yeah.
The hustle, because we've done it where we would go Wednesday, which is preview night, to Sunday. You clock into your hotel, you get everything put together on a Wednesday, and it's all hustle. All right, we gotta get our stuff all in the hotel. We got to go down to the convention, get our tickets. You got to go in. We got to do all this and this. And then on Sunday, it's like, all right, now we got to pack our bags and we got to get ready to drive out. That's too much hassle. So we would go a day early.
One more day.
Relax, get everything ready to go. We're set. We're there early on Wednesday. We get our tickets, no big deal. And then on Sunday, everything's closing up shop. And we're like, well, whatever. We just go right back out to the Gaslamp District, find another restaurant. And then we leave Monday. So there's no packing our bags in a hurry or any of that stuff. After you do it for a while, you realize that hustle and that time doing that is just too much to do at once and still have a good time. So we always went a day earlier and stayed a day later.
Yeah. Especially,
and there's so much. Like SeaWorld is there. You walk down the
zoo.
Yeah, there's a zoo. You walk down the street and there's like a giant pirate ship that's like a restaurant, and you get like all these like fish markets and everything. There's little Italy. There's a lot to it than just comic books. And then now the convention's so big, it spills out to the street. So there's all these like activations and panels all across the street, and there's always something to do down there. So it's worth it. I'm trying to tell her we could just go down there and just hang out. Like we could just go for a day, if that. Just go hang out, see what we see, do a couple of things, and then go do something else. Go visit family or something.
You almost don't even need a ticket to go to the show. You can just, if you just wanted to go get the whole vibe of what it's like, you go into the show. I mean, all you're doing is your vendors everywhere. It's great, but vendors are everywhere. At any show, go for the experience outside of the show. You don't need a ticket for that. You just roll up in the bus system that they got there. Just get dropped off and just don't start walking with a backpack. You'll find so much. Much.
Yeah, and because it's like two conventions almost. Like it's so big. Like,
it's a good point.
You can do the stuff inside, but that's all basically like shopping and doing your being a consumer and stuff. But you go outside and there's just activities, and I remember there was for some movie, but they would have they had this giant military helicopter, and you could do like this obstacle course. Like there's always stuff to do out there. It's so much fun. And then afterwards, like you said, it's like, all right, I can go to a restaurant. There's a couple of bodegas there, little, there's not like 7-Elevens where you're just getting like gross sandwiches. There's like bodegas where you get like freshly made sandwiches every day. So
it's all legit stuff. And almost anywhere you eat is going to be some kind of, fish tacos. Just go find a place with fish tacos. That's all you need for every single night for sustenance.
Yeah.
Are you guys are trying to go then? You and the wife and the kids?
Yeah, we're talking about it, but we got so much going on already. It's a big trip down there, do stuff, come back, all in the span of a weekend. It's a lot, but we'll see. I want to do it. I just want to go down there and hang out. That's it. Maybe meet up with a couple people I know or something.
That's
another thing. Like, if you just want to go down there, if you have a friend, just be like, dude, let me borrow your ticket for a couple hours. Let me just get your pass. Let me go inside for a couple hours. You go eat or whatever. When you go on your lunch, let me use your pass. Let me go in and just experience it real quick, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then guys like us have been around for so long and have so many friends in the industry.
Yeah.
You go down there. I mean, you're nonstop running into people that nonstop. There's even people you see that know you, and you may not quite remember them, or them, but they don't quite remember you. But it's nonstop. It's like a who's who, not just of the people that are sellers or buyers, in the comic book industry, but a who's who of the talent list that goes there, of all the creators. I mean, my first one was in 2000, and I remember walking up to Stan Lee, and there was, maybe like 10 people in line, and just being able to sit there and stand there and talk to him, for like a good 10 minutes without his handlers, and just let him be Stan. I can remember going in. Art Adams had nobody in line. For Art Adams, he had nobody in line. I talked to him for like a good 25, 30 minutes just about, him and what he did. And then we started talking about, just other random stuff of life. It was just, that's the experience you had then. You can't really do it so much now because it's all,
it's all business now with the creators. It feels like.
And it's like, I feel bad for the creators because like we were talking about this at Amazing Con, how when you and I were growing up in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, a creator didn't charge you a dime for a signature.
Or even a sketch.
50 books, and you'd pay nothing. You would drop, 20. They might have a little tip bucket, and you can drop, 20, 40, 50 bucks in there, to give it to them just to say thanks. But it wasn't a requirement. Now, a signature's $5 just for like one book, sometimes even more, depending on who you are. If it's any kind of a book that's going to be graded and it's 40 and on, and just think about the Liefeld prices of what he does. I remember when he came to Amazing Las Vegas last year, I mean, he had this price list that started at $80 to get like Boot for the Bruise Crew or something signed by him, and then and it went out all the way up to like $280 to get like remarked sketches and special ink pens, and it's like I grew up in an era where we didn't do that. They just meeting the creators that we had, that we got to from the 90s, they never did that. Even the old timers that we're growing through, it's just John Byrne, he was more than happy to sit there and just have a conversation and sign whatever you had, but it's so different now. And I think a lot of that is attributed to people grading and the flippers and the sellers and stuff. Not so much. There's the reader is not what it was. I mean, I feel like in the 90s it was 75-80% of us were readers and 20% were sellers. It has completely flipped its head now. It's probably even more like 90% of people are sellers and 10% are readers. I mean, as attributed to the sales of what issues sells, the sales numbers for print runs now compared to when we were in the 90s. It's almost like it's disheartening. It's just to grow through a golden era for us in the 90s with comics and even the 2000s, and just to see what it's evolved into now. It's still fun. Don't get me wrong. It's absolute fun. But I find myself, I read less than now than I ever have in my entire life. And I was a 50 book a month pull box kind of a guy. And I read every single one of them. Some of them just out of complete, like Uncanny X-Men and Amazing Spider-Man. I was an Uncanny kid since, I was 13 years old. So I bought it forever and ever. And Joe Casey came along and I was like, still digging it. But, it was, who was it? Fabian Nishiza, when he had his, he was doing part of a run. And then that's when I started falling off the X-Men. Because he was way too wordy for me and just too explanatory. And I didn't need that. I didn't want that. I already knew these characters, but it was just too much. I found that I recall growing up through that era of, reading those 90s comics.
That's interesting because that's Fabian Nicieza. He took over right after like Claremont left. Right after Claremont and Jim Lee left. Because Claremont left after X-Men #1. Claremont. No, wait. Was it Nicieza doing Uncanny, or was he doing just regular X-Men, or was that Scott Lobdell? Now I'm confused. But either way, he got on after Claremont.
It was Nishiza because he was doing it with the Kubert. He was doing it with Kubert.
Okay, so it was X-Men then.
Yeah.
Because that was after Jim Lee left. after because Claremont left at issue 1 or after issue 3 of X-Men. Like
Yeah, it was him and it was his and Jim Lee. It was like his
Yeah.
swan song to X-Men, and then
Right.
yeah, then but Nishija didn't take over. Then it was
John Byrne after that. John Byrne was writing it for a little bit.
and then it was like around 11, I think, or 12 is when Jim Lee, that was his last issues.
Yeah.
And then it took over. Then I think Nishija came on board not long after that, if I remember.
Right, because that's about the time where like I still had fond memories of that stuff because Nicieza was doing. That was about the time when it was like Executioner Song, and that led into the Legacy virus
Yes.
for the X-Men. Like when they were just dying because it was basically AIDS. You know, it was basically mutant AIDS for a time.
mutants, yeah.
You know, yeah.
Until Colossus got the cure, and then that destroyed me.
Sacrificed himself. Yeah,
That destroyed me.
I see the shirt, man. To save his sister. Yeah.
One of the 8 moments in comic books that I've cried was, Colossus dying. So
that was a rough book, dude. That was Joe Kelly, wasn't it? I think it was Joe Kelly.
I'm pretty positive it was Joe Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when Joe Kelly took over the X-Men, I remember there was a part where the Beast just locked himself into his lab, and on the door, he didn't write it. He scratched it in the door, like his list of things he wanted to get done.
Yeah.
And one of them was the Legacy virus, was to find a cure for the Legacy virus.
There's little moments like that for the 90s you remember very poignantly,
There's a man. I have it up here. You can't see it in my camera too well, but X-Men 25 and then Wolverine 75, right?
The hologram
25 is in the adamantium gets ripped out of Wolverine, and that was like holy crap! Like
yeah,
Magneto. What the? Because you always, everybody always kind of thought like Magneto has magnetism. He controls metal, and Wolverine's basically made out of metal. Like that's going to be a cool fight, right? And they actually did it in X-Men 25, and you see it just coming out of his pores, and he's dying, and they're in space. They're on asteroid M.
Yep.
And Jean Grey has to kind of hold them together, and she falls out of the spaceship, and Wolverine holds on to her, and he's dying. That was the greatest. And then X-Men 75 comes out, and he's healing himself up a little bit, and he goes into the danger room, and he pops his claws for the first, and it's bone claws that pop out.
You're like, whoa, wait, what? He had claws the whole time?
Yeah. Wait, that was bone claws? Like, wait, so he was born that way? Like, what's happening here? What's changing? What's so different? That was the 1-2 knockout punch of the 90s X-Men comics. Like, those 2 issues back to back was just like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I can't control myself. Like, it's too much going on right now. What is happening? Nothing is real anymore. And it was like that. And because you like you said too, Barney, I'm 100% agree with you that the stories are not, there's good stuff out there. You got to dig for it and you got to hunt for it. I get it. It's that stuff is out there, and there is good comics, but there's nothing substantial happening like that because you had X-Men 70, you had X-Men 25, Wolverine gets his adamantium ripped out of him. Professor X mind wipes Magneto, and that leads to Onslaught. Like later, because X-Men Wolverine 75, it was Wolverine 110. Wolverine 110 is when you get the origin of Onslaught, and it dates back to that. Yes. And you don't have that kind of continuity and that flow and that connection anymore, it feels like.
And that was probably the last great X-Men crossover was the Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah. That's the greatest X-Men crossover event was definitely Age of Apocalypse.
I remember going just ape shit over those issues when they were coming out, seeing the concept designs of what the new X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse were going to look like. Wolverine with, just half a hand.
And, he had the stump.
And, and Dark Beast, and, Cable now is X-Man. And, there's
Magneto with the long gray hair that just fat ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was such an amazing Elseworlds, what if kind of concept that it just grabbed you but I remember, do you remember the big reveal when we didn't know who Onslaught was?
Right.
For the longest time. And then when we found out who Onslaught was, I remember my mind just lost. I just melted over who it was and then how they did it. I just, those moments. I don't know if because we grew up in the in the 90s reading comics and early 2000s, in the 2000s, reading such amazing stories. Even being able to go back, even though we're in the 90s, as teenagers, you could go back and read those books because the 80s books were pretty easily accessible for us. So I was reading like John Sable, and just going nuts over Mike Grell. I just thought I remember 1 through 25 at page after page for $0.25 each because I was going on a trip to Yuma, Arizona to stay with my great grandma, my great aunt for a month, and I needed some material. So, John Sable Freelance was it, and I just bought that. I bought Watchmen 1 through 12 out of the quarter bins. Just reading that for the first time, and I remember they I can't think of any much of the other stuff that I was buying, but it was all quarter bin stuff, just to read, just to have something to read when I went to Arizona to go visit family. But it was all easily accessible, to get and to find it in chunks to where you can read it and enjoy it. And it's like now I try to bring that with having dollar books, or $2 books. Just keep it really reasonably priced for people to just buy something, whether they just like the cover. You're only spending $1. Chances are, that book could be 6 months old. That was a $4.99 book, and I'm selling it for $1. So it's not breaking your pocket to be able to buy something. Whereas now cover prices are standard, like $3.99, $4.99.
$6 sometimes, yeah.
Some of the bigger quality, just because it's a little bit of a heavier stock paper, it's $6.99, or oversized $9.99. It's like you've almost priced the kid version of me and you in the 90s. We would not survive now. There's absolutely no way I could buy comic books.
No, I got maybe $20 for allowance, if that.
A week, yeah.
Yeah, a week, yeah, if that.
I would save my lunch money and wouldn't even eat. I would save my lunch money just to go to the store after school, to buy.
I'd pick up bottles and cans from around the house, and back in like I said, my dad would drink, and I'd be all right. I'm gonna recycle all these bottles. I'm gonna take them to Ralph's to recycle them, right? Or I would find money in like the cushions of the couch or something like that,
Or you pick up all the dirty laundry and start taking, shaking your dad's jeans and like, yep, there's quarters in there.
Yeah, because you could get a book for $1. Like back then, early in the 90s, $1.25, 75 cents. You get a comic book.
When I started collecting, it was August of '89, and it was $1 was the cover price.
Yeah,
and I was a New Mutants number 84, Acts of Vengeance. It's a nothing book, but I still have that exact same book that I bought, the very first book. I went, I don't know if I ever told you the story. We went on a camping trip up to Cold Creek, Nevada, and on the way back, my uncle gave me $5, and I bought a pack of baseball cards, Upper Deck baseball cards, that comic book, a Charleston Chew, and a Slurpee, and something else, all for $5. All of that. Opened up the cards, got nothing, ate the Charleston Chew, drank the Slurpee, read the comic book, then I read the comic book again. Then I read the comic book again. I'm like, then all of a sudden I'm like, no more baseball cards. That's, phased out now. And now it's nothing but comic books. That's all it ever was since then.
And as a Rob Liefeld issue, New Mutants too.
That was just before.
Was it before 84?
Yeah.
84?
Just before. 85 was when him and McFarlane did the cover. And then
84. They said 94.
No, 84, yeah.
Okay.
85 was him and McFarlane did the cover, and then 86 they did a cover, and then of course 87 is the first cable. So.
Yeah.
I think
85. No, 86 is the Vulture cover. Is the Vulture cover? Yeah.
85. I'm trying to remember what it looked like. It was like a darker bluish color. That's what's popping in my head. But I can't think of what it looks like off the top of my head at all.
Oh, I know this cover. Let me show you. Let me find it real fast. I know there's a cool little story behind this cover.
I'm pretty sure it was Was it Liefeld and McFarlane was inking him, or was
Yeah, it was a Liefeld McFarlane cover.
both of them? Yeah, both
It's
of
the
them.
one where Odin is in his Odin sleep, and there's like a red demon or something, or like magic is above him. Let me see. I'll bring it up for you. I found it. But
Whoop, whoop.
yeah,
There it is. Yes, that's 85. Yep.
yeah, that's someone. Louise Simonson was on the book. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
this is Odin in the Odin sleep. See, I like this team when it was like this is when the team was starting to change up a little bit. Where it was Warlock and like Boom Boom was on here, and Rob Liefeld already said this team sucked. I can see what he means because Boom Boom has like the bow in her hair. Like no teenage girl dressed like that in the 90s, right, or in the late 80s.
Yeah, I get it. You know,
But that Odin sleep, like that wasn't the face they drew for Odin. Apparently, John Romita Sr. like put a stencil over it, and that's a John Romita face. That's not a Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld ink.
no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they changed that up on him. He said, yeah.
They didn't like the Liefeld, pencils with the.
I guess not on that face. I guess everything else is good, but that face just didn't work for him, and so that's the John Romita Sr. I mean, yeah.
Isn't that some?
Yeah. And yeah, at the $1 book, dude, and back then for $1, you get a comic book, and like you said, you'd read it 100 times or whatever.
And find something new every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts about 90s comics, even 2000s, but you remember that even they did it in the 80s too, is there would always be little blurbs in the comic book referencing another issue that something happened in, or referencing this story happened back in. Don't you remember, silly X-Men Annual number?
Yeah, a little star that would say like X-Men 266 or something.
That immediately would take me. Oh, I gotta go find that book, and then all of a sudden it just faded and it was no longer there. But those little things like that would just push me into going to find those other things or those other comics to see what it was that they were talking about in that particular moment. They just that's not present.
That was a time when you would read a comic book for the first time or whatever. You just pick up a comic book and you would read go from there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like with those little blurbs or whatever, you would work your way backwards as well. Try to find back issues and stuff like that. Work your way backwards as you're going forward. Nowadays, you can't seem to really be able to do that. Like everybody wants to start at a number one. Oh, I gotta go at a number one, or I don't know what's going on. Is that what? Nowadays, they make it that way for you. But before, you would just jump in the middle of a book, the middle of a storyline, and you would be able to know what was going on for the most part. Like you figure it out and you catch up a little bit. But nowadays, man, I even tried to read a new number one book, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, because they obviously continued the story from a different story, right? It was a new Green Lantern Corps. The new Green Lantern Corps. It's a pretty good book. But it starts off and it's like, I don't know anybody here. I know who John Stewart is, and I know who Sinestro is. I don't know who these other characters are too much. And John Stewart, something happened, and I guess his family died. I'm putting two together because he made a construct of his dead sister. So it's like this little green construct of his sister running around with him because he can't get over the fact that she died, I guess. But there's nothing in there that'd be perfect for it to be like, oh, Star. See Green Lantern, such and such, and I'd be, let me go see what that story is about or something. It doesn't even work today, and I don't even know if most comic books today would be safe enough for some kids. Some of the stuff they put in it might be too much where parents don't want it anymore for their kids, or
there's a lot of hidden innuendos, and agendas that are within it that you're not recognizing until, as a parent, you're just thinking, oh yeah, Spider-Man, go ahead.
Right.
You don't see the overarching of how they're leading towards something that is, even though it's today's society stuff, it's sometimes things don't have a place in comics.
Right.
Certain comics, yes, but certain ones, no. I think about, when we were growing up, there was the hidden messages within things where, like, Ethan Van Sciver putting in, subliminal messages in the fencing during his new
X-Men.
X-Men run with Grant Morrison, and putting in messages in there about, I think it was I want to say Bob Harris.
I think it wasn't just the F word. I think there's an issue where he hit. I think he hit the F word in like every issue or something. Yeah.
Oh, I know what it was. It was a Universe X.
You're thinking of the Universe X one where the books in the background
binders.
Ha, Bob Harris, good riddance or something.
Yeah. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
That was our hidden messages, for us, in the 90s and early in the 2000s. But I have not the last great series that I read. I hesitate to call it great. I really enjoyed it, but not so much great. But I really enjoyed it. Was that Beneath the Trees, where nobody sees, that little 5-6 issue.
I didn't read that. I didn't read that
book.
Okay.
I picked it up from Jay over at Maximum. He had a set, like a 6-issue set for a good price, and I just wanted to read it. I didn't care what printing numbers it was or nothing like that. So I picked it up and read it, and I was like, this was actually really good. I really enjoyed this, and it was one of the first books I've read in a while that I've actually enjoyed. Where just like you, I'm not picking something up, and I don't know where I'm at. I cannot read an X-Men book today because I don't know where I'm at. I missed so much, and I have no inkling of going back to try to figure out what happened to get me to where I am now. I don't.
You don't know. I don't know where to go because they don't tell you. I guess they assume you could just look it up on your phone or something, or Wikipedia or something like that, right? But let me know the issue numbers, or let me know. But then again, it's like, I mean, I've worked in enough comic book stores. I've worked at Maximum. I worked at Torpedo and stuff. And somebody would come in. It must be even worse now. But people would come in and be like, "Do you have, Captain America 9?" And I'd be like, which number 9 are we talking about here?
Which volume?
Yeah. Which number 9 are we talking about? And they would show you the cover. And I know which one you're talking about. Oh, I don't have that one, but I got that one, but not that cover. Like now everything is different with covers too. So it's like, I got it, but it's a different cover, but it's the same issue. It's the same story in it, But it's so difficult to do that nowadays. That's a lot of my reading. I've been going back, dude. Like I've been reading a lot of back issue stuff. I've been reading a lot of comic book history stuff. Like I bought like a bunch of those like Alter Egos off of You. And those I love those Tomorrow Worlds magazines,
Yeah. And the back issue magazines.
Back issue magazines. I have them here. Alter Ego. Like, I've been finding like old comics journals from like the 80s and stuff. That stuff.
The Peter David article in the back, but I digress. The back of the comics journals. It was must read. Every single week I would get the subscription for that. I had to read Peter David's article. But I
have a whole collection of it.
But I digress. There it is. Is that a collected of?
Yeah, there's a whole collection of all of his, not all of his articles, but most of his articles from that. Yeah.
God, I miss Peter David. He was freaking phenomenal.
Did you see him at Amazing?
I did.
2 years ago? Okay.
I did. And I thanked him. I must have thanked him 10 times because I'm like, for him, for him, he was such a massive part of my childhood with the humor that he brought, whether it was in the Incredible Hulk, but not just the humor, the
thought-provoking stuff he put in there.
Yeah. I mean, he put things together that you just, the AIDS issue, with Rick Jones's best friend and even the X Factor stuff. Nobody gave a crap about Strong Guy. And he made Strong Guy and Multiple Man and Wolfsbane and, just made them all relevant. And his X Factor run was it was ridiculous. It was like off the charts how great that was at the time when he was doing it.
Which X Factor run are you talking about?
His starting with issue 71 when they did the revamp.
Okay.
When Image started and Marvel had to do the whole new revamp, and they had, I think it was him and Larry Stroman on X Factor, if I remember.
Larry Stroman, he was on it for a bit. I think Joe Quesada was on it too for a while.
He took over after,
Because Joe Quesada did that issue. It's one of the best issues that I love because that's the X Factor run where they became like government agents.
Yeah.
but that
Polaris.
issue where they're having like the therapy session.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was great
Kingston?
because you got because you had like Quicksilver on the team, and Quicksilver's talking about, you know how much my life sucks, that I'm so fast and I could do anything in a second, that no matter what else is going on around me, it's the same as you being stuck behind somebody at the ATM machine who doesn't know how to work it. You know, like so you really kind of Peter David did that and explained as to why Quicksilver is such a dick. It's not that he's just a dick, but it's just like he just doesn't have any patience because you can just do everything. Like, all right, I'm done, right? But
The rationale
everybody else is trying to is so slow around him, right?
Yeah,
It's like when you're walking in public and that person behind you is just so slow. You're like, God, fuck, let me get around you.
Get the hell out of the way. Yeah.
That's every second of his life. So that was such a great issue. Like, everybody, he just opened up everybody. You really got a character-driven issue for everybody in that one issue.
Yeah. Like I said, strong guy. Nobody cared. Nobody even knew who the strong guy was. And he turned him into something that just made your heart just warm. I mean, it wasn't for me what Colossus is, but Strong Guy was a character that he was short-lived because, I mean, I don't think we've had an appearance of Strong Guy in 20 years.
I couldn't tell you when I can't remember the last time anything with Strong Guy ever happened.
I think it was like early 2000s. There was a one-shot, I think, called Strong Guy Returns, if I remember correctly.
Because he was in the. Because that's why I asked you which version of X Factor you were talking about from Peter David. Because his second run on X Factor, when it was X Factor Investigations, was also like mind-blowing, amazing. Every issue was messed up, dude.
The tone was so different than that original X Factor run. The X Factor still had an X-Men feel to it. That's when all the image artists left, and then Marvel had just had to reboot, and all of a sudden, who was it? I want to say Will Prakash. Was it Will? No, he had Wetworks. No, it was
actually Wetworks, but that was later because he had
second wave. Will Prakash took over Jim Lee's, the part of the Uncanny X-Men run. After Lee left Uncanny and went to X-Men, and then there was a few fillers, and then Andy Kubert did a few, I think it was, and then Will Prakash took over 281. That's where they introduced Bishop, and then brought that stuff in, and then the X-Men and X Factor, and then X-Force restarted into X-Force, excuse me, which lasted, I think, 15 issues, right around there. I think 15 was the final. I'm trying to remember. Because
that was one of like the last Liefeld issues. Was 15.
X-Force 4. Wasn't that was the side? That was the side comic where
that was a crossover with Spider-Man. That was
Spider-Man 15. Yeah. I think X-Force 15 was like or 13, something like that, was one of the last Liefeld issues, and he's gone, and he's off making Youngblood, and
Liefeld stuck around on X-Force though. That was weird because that's like one thing where everyone thought they had problems with Marvel. They just were like, no, we want to do our own thing and have control.
Yeah.
But he stuck around for a while and did X-Force for a while. He did covers and stuff like that, all the way up to like 15 or 16.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think 15 was the one where Deadpool fights Cable on the cover. It's like a yellow cover, if I remember right. I think it was right before then when he left. But I can remember, you can remember when all those books dropped, all those Image books.
Yeah.
And we were just going bonkers over. And, for me, my favorite, without any doubt, was Wildcats. Because, one, I'm a Jim Lee fan, but just
absolutely
his character designs, And I like Spawn. I really did appreciate and like Spawn. I like Savage Dragon, and Youngblood was okay, but Wildcats. I mean, with the characters that he was doing in there from, it just took me in a whole new direction. It was like I'm getting on the ground floor of X-Men #1 that people had in the 60s. And now I'm feeling what that's like with Wildcats. This is how I felt with that book.
Absolutely. I remember waiting for Wildcats to come out. Because that was like the fourth the fourth or fifth book from Image to come out was Wildcats. Like Jim Lee was like the last one to launch his book, I think.
Yeah, I think Youngblood was the first.
Youngblood was first,
And then
Youngblood 2
Spawn.
was second, and then Spawn number 1.
And then Savage Dragon, the miniseries.
And I think it was Savage Dragon, and then Cyberforce.
Yeah, Sylvester Cyberforce.
Yeah, and then Jim Lee did his Wildcats. I remember waiting for that book to come out, dude. I had it in my folder, my binder at school. Like I would read it in class. I got it taken away from me because I was reading it in class. But no, I was the same as you, man. I was a big Jim Lee mark at that time. I still am. I still love Jim Lee no matter what.
Yeah.
But that was something different because it was, like you said, it was like finding a whole new team of characters that nobody knew. Nobody could say they know more than you about these characters. You're finding it. You're going along with the story for the first time, along with everybody else. You know,
that's why
the coloring was different. The paper quality, I remember. Even then, I was like, "There's something different about like the coloring in this book," you know, because they were doing digital colors at the time.
That was some of the first digital coloring was done in those. Yeah,
exactly.
And that was classic Jim Lee, Scott Williams doing his inks, and just that's a tandem that just worked. It just you couldn't separate it. You know, just keep that together forever. And I remember three hole punching my Wildcats to put it in my Trapper Keeper going to high school, going to Rancho, and I would take a look at it while I was in class, while the teacher's not around, and then just flip a page back over like I'm doing some work, but just staring at the artwork and trying to find a way for me to draw voodoo again, which I mean I could come nowhere close, but I would try, the long legs, and I would give it a shot, and but yeah.
And that was back when she was in her stripper outfit too.
Yeah, with the
fuzzy boots, and
fuzzy shearskin, the lamb wool boots or whatever it was. Yeah, but all of her, dragon tattoos up and down, and I thought she was all those characters I really enjoyed.
Oh, I love them. Zealot was awesome, dude. Grifter is still one of the coolest characters of all time, I think.
You remember when
just that dirty rag that he had around over his face with like the eye design on it is like the coolest design. Like the jacket, like he was like, because I really loved Jim Lee's Gambit, and I felt like that was like another version. Like he wasn't, but just like the cool factor was there. With
that's what Grifter was like. Yeah, I can remember. Do you remember when Team 7 was coming out and the hype, what it was building up to before we knew what Team 7 was? But when they talked about what Team 7 was going to be, and it was, Chapel before he turned into what he did, Spawn, and then Al Simmons, who is Spawn, and then Grifter was part of Backlash, all these major characters from all the different Image titles that were big at the time, playing, that were all served together during Vietnam as a unit, the special unit. And just, I remember when Team 7 was coming out, the concept of it, but then pulling from all the greatest, Image comics at the time to create this team. I mean, I went bonkers for that. I was going absolutely goofy over waiting for that book to come out, And I remember when it hit, I remember loving it, but it's not a book that I can read. And it doesn't quite stand up like it did for me. But I was a different reader then than I am now, or a different reader 10 years ago than I was, even now. But a lot of that stuff, it doesn't quite hold up. Like I was like in the 90s, we talk about in the 90s, New Warriors was, there it is. Look at
there's that Team 7, bro. Aaron Weissenfeld. I'm trying to think of the artist's name.
What is it?
Aaron Weissenfeld.
Okay.
Weissenfeld.
Man.
And Trevor Scott.
Yep, Trevor Scott.
So that's Trevor Scott Key. Do you know who Trevor Scott Key is? That's a pseudonym for Rob Liefeld.
What?
Rob Liefeld inked this.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I knew that, but I didn't realize that he was the inker of this. Until I just pulled that up. Yeah, Trevor Scott Key is a pseudonym for Rob Liefeld.
Huh.
Yeah, Oh, and dude, back to Team 7 real fast. This connecting cover
Yes.
is the coolest.
Nine
This is
of
the
them.
coolest, bro. I
nine
have
of
them all. I wanted them so bad as a kid. I only had a couple of them here and there, you know.
Oh, they were like
'Cause back
15
then, you couldn't
bucks.
find everything, right? Because it was just, there was always comic shops around, but I didn't always live somewhere where there was a comic shop. I didn't know where they were. And 7-Elevens didn't always get everything, right?
And
So
they
I
don't get
didn't have
those,
all of
yeah.
these until maybe I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I got all of them. I was so happy. I love
All
these
nine.
things so much,
All
dude.
9 of them, yeah.
Yeah, these things are. It's Will Pistachio did all the covers, dude. These things are great.
Yeah. I love those, man. And it's still, when I come across them, usually I'll throw them in the dollar bins or $2 bins.
Yeah.
And usually when people come through and they'll pick stuff out, and then if they stop and look at them, like, do you know the story behind that? And I'll give them a little no. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, this is something you should really consider trying to hunt down, because to put all 9 of them together
Yes.
in a big picture like it is, I'm like, you'd be doing yourself a favor for finding them. And they're inexpensive now. When we were growing up, they were $15.
Oh, they're like $20
$25
books in the 90s, dude. Each cover is so expensive, man. Yeah.
Just like the Valiant stuff. I remember the Valiant stuff when it was coming out. If it was the gold versions of everything. You just or a Solar number 10. The black cover, the first.
Yeah, the one that was all black or something.
Yeah. That was I was like an $80 to $100 book. You couldn't afford it. Even the retailer incentives, you couldn't afford those as a kid. Flash forward all these years later, I buy collections. All of a sudden, I'm coming across them like, oh wow, what do you know? Here's the Bloodshot Gold, number 0 gold version, and Eternal Warrior Gold, 5 copies of it, and Archer and Armstrong, and
And then you end up having to sell them for like $5 or whatever. If that.
I know.
Yeah, but I remember back then being like, God damn, dude! Like, I have one of my favorite books of all time. I have it up here graded. Is Prophet number 4, the Stephen Platt variant.
Yeah,
cover. I love that. I have a 9/8 of it here. I have a poster of it framed over here on my wall. It's my favorite cover of all time. I love it. And I remember that the comic shop down the street from my mom's house, I would walk to it every day because we didn't have phones or anything like that. When we were kids, we just walked everywhere. Like, we just walked and just we would just cruise and find stuff out in the city. Our parents would just kick us out of the house, right?
Yeah,
We
don't
would
come
go
home,
cruise
street
around.
lights come on. Yeah,
Exactly. And my comic shop, I remember to this day, the comic shop down the street from my mom's house, $60, right? And I did a ton of extra chores, everything I could to get that $60. And I bought it. Finally, I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. I bought it and I read it and I opened it. I was like, this is the same damn book. I have this book already. It was the first time I ever discovered what a variant was and what that meant and everything. I was like, God damn, I have this book already. Because the inside art was Dan Panosian, who's amazing now. Like, he's fantastic now. Back then, he's another kind of Rob Liefeld kind of clone, like a Rob Liefeld light kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't really dig the art that much, but I was hoping for Stephen Platt art, but I didn't show up until issue 5, and that was a game changer. But that cover 4, I'm gonna grab it just because I can. I love this book so much. I love this cover, dude. I love
exactly which one it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it so much, dude. It's my favorite cover of all time.
Stephen Platt, I remember when he hit, he was as big as there was as an artist to drop in that time.
Dude, it was a shockwave that hit comic books when he came out.
Yeah.
Just the detail, the energy, the excitement, everything about his artwork was just insane. And we didn't get a lot out of him. Like, he kind of just faded away after a while.
Yeah, I mean, we got Prophet, and then we got Moon Knight for 6-7 issues.
Which Moon Knight first for
cover.
He didn't even do all the issues of Moon Knight. He did the covers.
He did most of the covers,
he did four issues of interiors. Prophet, a bunch of random cover stuff, and then this book. You remember Soul Saga?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah. He didn't even finish it. It was supposed to be 7 issues. Oh, look at that. I just turned to that page. Look at that. Yeah. But the last issue, he never released in America. It only got released in Germany or something like that. I love this stuff so much, dude. I'm glad to talk to you about this, dude. Because I'm glad. I know you love it as much as I do, and this is fun. Especially like that Team 7 stuff. You know where the Team 7 kind of led into, right? That led into maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember. Damn it. That led into Gen 13.
Yeah.
Like, that was like
It's
their
the parents.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that now too. I forgot until you just reminded me that that's what it led into.
Dude, I love talking to you right now, man. I'm so excited because it's not very often do I get to talk to somebody about comic books like this and they know what I'm talking about. They're usually like, oh, I don't know what you mean. I'm like, oh, dude, like, come on, man. Team 7? Team 7? No,
Team
Gen
7,
13?
yeah.
Gen 13? Come on.
Yeah. But you know, Blood Wolf, the life cover,
yeah.
where he's got like, there's like a variant cover of like, 8 different sayings on the cover that he had something to say. And it was the most ridiculous concept, but that sums up 90s, 90s comics is variant covers, lenticulars,
gold foil, all the stuff they're trying to do now, like, isn't as cool. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what. I'm sorry, anybody that loves that stuff. It's not as cool as when they originally did that stuff in the 90s.
It's not.
I don't know what it is. It's not as cool. The gold foil is not as cool. The foils now, like when they do like foil covers, they suck. I hate these foil covers so much because it mutes the artwork. It mutes the coloring. It's so dull. Like it just doesn't work.
But for us, all it did was highlighted. I remember there was a Fantastic Four, I think, with Sue Storm in a different costume, and there's like a prismatic cover, and it had like all these like shards all around her. I
have that here somewhere lying on my floor. My room's a mess of comics right now, but yeah. That I love that cover so much because that's the one where they're all in jackets. That was back in the day when like it wasn't meant to be like the Fantastic Four was wearing jackets because that was when like all the Avengers were wearing like those bomber jackets. It was like that. And on the cover, they all have jackets on, and they're in like the Arctic or somewhere, right? Somewhere cold, and they all have jackets on. Even a Human Torch, who's on fire. Like, why does that dude need a jacket? He's literally fire. Like, there's no way he is cold or he needs a jacket.
That jacket, I'm sure it's unstable molecules.
Right? Yeah, it's not burning up at all.
But, I mean, I can go all the way to Eclipse. Was it Eclipso,
with the diamond
one, with the diamond plastic that was glued on the cover?
Trying to pick it off. Yeah, I remember trying to pick it off.
Resurrection Man with his eyeball was, a lenticular like circle of a picture of him in costume on it. The die cuts when you open it up and it revealed an image behind it, but yet, you have Wolverine 50 with the 3 claws coming across.
That's the coolest die cut ever. There would never be another good die cut like that.
I'm sure that's what prompted them to do all these new Topps Chrome X-Men cards. Have you seen much of these?
Like their new ones coming out like today?
Yeah, they came out like within the last couple of weeks. There's all these new Topps Chrome cards. It's like the biggest thing right now is what we had, the Marvel cards in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Now Topps is reproducing, and they have like different versions of the cards, but they actually have some cards with the Wolverine 3 slashes right through the card. And so when you look at the card, I mean, you're looking right through it because it's got that slash marks on there. And, some of them, depending on the characters, they're numbered from 1, it'd be like number 7 of 15 or whatever the numbering systems are. But the prices on some of these are just going bonkers right now.
I think I saw something about that where they had signed cards.
I think they have signed cards. Yeah.
But it's dumb. They're signed cards, and people are going crazy for these signed cards, but they're signed. They're not even like real autographs. It's not like an artist took a pen and wrote their name on it. It literally just says like Spider-Gwen or Psylocke, like written on it. Like, it's not even like nobody wrote it. Like it's not in pen. Like nobody took a Sharpie to it. It's printed on there, but they're saying it's a signed card, and people are going nuts all for it. I saw something about that.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm not going to do it. I'm not getting into it. We met a guy at the last Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con that was right by our booth. Super cool guy. He was part of the marketing team. I think he was telling us for these Topps Chrome cards. So he actually gave me and Butter and Ray and Nick a promo pack for each of us, like 2 packs each. Here,
That's
guys,
cool.
these are the new cards that are going to be coming out. They haven't even dropped yet. You know, and they gave us a promo pack of these cards. And so we're like, hey, you know, let's open them up. I'm like, all right, hold on. Depending on who you get, you know, we have dibs. So I'm like, if I get a Colossus or a Psylocke or any of you, it's mine. It's mine.
Yeah.
You know, then it's like, I want, you know, Spider-Man and Green Goblin. And then Ray's, you know, like, I want, you know. So each 4 of us are claiming, you know, the characters that we want. We open all these little promo packs that have maybe like 5 or 6 cards in each one. And I'm the only one that got one, and I got a Colossus. And so I'm like, all right, well, you guys can have the rest of the cards. There was actually a chase card that was in there. I don't remember who the character was. And I was like, who wants them? Go ahead. And, you know, now that particular card is probably like an $80 card or something silly. So, but
That's crazy.
go ahead.
Well, the card market and the comic book market seems to be like colliding because right now is a lot of like blind packs of comics. You know, like you see those, like the Battle Beast, like
Battle
blind
Beast.
packs. Yeah. It's like opening up a pack of cards. Like it looks the same as like a giant wax pack of cards. You get like 4 or 5 comics in it.
Yeah.
You know. But that seems to be like that's the big thing right now. I'm like, nope, I'm not getting into that. Like, that's not for me. That's not for me.
I did not buy a single issue of that Battle Beast. You know, I will, you know, at some point, but I just did not want to get caught up in the chase for what it was. Now, I do know someone that, you know, has a shop I was having a conversation with, and you could actually weigh those, and there's I think it's like a foil cover, or like a silver foil cover, then there's the regular covers. The foils weigh less. So if you actually took it and went like this, you could feel the difference. And the one that's lighter, that's the one that's the foil cover. So, you know, once people started figuring that out, now they're starting to, you know, sit there in the comic book store doing this. Like, all right, pick one, you got to go. You know, now all of a sudden.
I'm out now. No way, because that means all the good ones are gone. You know?
Yeah, so why even bother? So, but I did not want to get in hype. But I don't remember, someone was telling me the print run on that particular book was like something like 220,000, which is by far and away, you're not beating that for any other comic book that comes out this year. Is not going to beat that print run. And the sad part about that, Gabe, 220,000 would get you canceled in the 90s if you.
Oh, absolutely. That was like sorry, suckers. Like, no, we can't do that. Like
220,000, you know, selling was New Warriors number 47. That's 220,000. You know, and I know because I love the hell out of the New Warriors.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's when you. So here you're born. I know you're born. Captain America and Avengers, they were selling something like 60,000 at the time, and that's why they needed to get Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld to take it over because it was selling like it was abysmal numbers for the 90s.
That was during the time when Marvel was going through the bankruptcy, if I remember right.
It was a little before the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy happened in the middle of Heroes Reborn.
Right, but that was leading right into it. Right. Marvel was
they were already struggling at that point.
Dropping. Yeah. They were trying to do something to save it. So they bring in Liefeld, they bring in Jim Lee, they brought in there was fantastic.
Will Tasha did the art for Iron Man. Yeah.
Iron Man.
Doing Iron Man.
And then they brought them in, and Jeff Loeb wrote one of them. I think he wrote the Captain America one, if I remember right.
He was right, Captain America.
And to relaunch, to do the Heroes Reborn, and it actually went off pretty well. Jim Lee's Fantastic Four run was actually really decent.
Oh, dude, that is peak Jim Lee to me. I think that's like his strongest artwork he's done is that Fantastic Four.
And
I don't know if he had something to prove or whatever it was. I don't know if he was eating differently or drinking differently or something, dude. But he was on another level with that Fantastic Four run.
Because at the same time, Image was starting to tail off. You know?
Right.
So they had to come back and do something. But I mean, but you just took two of your favorite things, Fantastic Four and Jim Lee, and put them together. It just gave you, you know, pure 90s gold for you.
I was in, dude. I was in so hard for that. And it was like, and they were retelling the stories, you know, the stories I never got to read, like the origin stories of the Fantastic Four and stuff like that. Like he was retelling it, Namor and Doctor Doom and all of that stuff. I loved it. It's so, it was, to me, Jim Lee was peak. My favorite Jim Lee art wise is not X-Men. His X-Men stuff's great. Like, don't get me wrong, but Wildcats, Fantastic Four, Batman Hush. I think that's like the Mount Rushmore of Jim Lee books.
It's hard to argue that. It really, really is hard to argue that. I particularly put, for me, Deathblow in there because
Deathblow's great just to see him like flex different muscles.
He just wanted to do something different, and he would just do a backwards way of his art. And, you know, I can remember appreciating it at the time, but not until later on, you know, when I started going through it and then reading stuff, what his thought process was, how he took himself out of his conventional ways of just drawing and wanted to just try all new stuff with Deathblow. Yeah. And so that for me was a taste of a dark side of Jim Lee, if you will, you know, of what he wanted to be as an artist, which was, I mean, to this day, it's still his Deathblow stuff. I still look at it and I'm just like, and I just shake my head like, God, dog. I don't know how.
I love that stuff because it was like Sin City, Frank Miller's Sin City-esque, you know, with like that negative spacing and stuff.
I watch him, and you know when he draws. You remember there was in the early '90s they had Stan Lee had he was putting out these VHS tapes of that he
Comic Book Greats,
and he had Jim Lee, and he had one with like McFarlane and Liefeld. I think that's what they created a character.
That's when they created Overkill.
It was that. And then he had Will Portacio and Jim Lee on an episode. But even to this day, like, and I think you can watch those on YouTube. I think someone like, you know, posted them up there. But to watch Jim Lee draw and just to see how he just takes a few lines and maybe after 10 lines, all of a sudden you're like, where do you get this vision from? I'm like, I can't put it together. How do you do this? It's just any artist, how they're able to flesh out the things that they do. You know, I've always been a big fan of Mike Mignola, you know, and his art style growing up, or Steve. Oh gosh, he did a lot of X-Men classic covers, and I was confused for the longest time because I always thought his name it has an L. But then he'd write Steve after it. So I thought his name was like Lee Stevens or something like that. But later on, I found that it's like Steve, you know, it's not Leahola or something like that, but it's something along those lines.
No, yeah, Steve Leahola was an inker.
I think it's Steve Little with two D's, if I remember correctly. But, you know, his art, or even Sam Keith. Oh, my God. Sam Keith does something. You know, the one issue of Hulk with 368 when he did Mr. Hyde, you know, that macabre, you know, the old Kelly Jones stuff from Batman, you know, that darker art that just, that's what grabbed me after I went through my Jim Lee and Will Portacio phases. Those are the things that started just grabbing me in a different way, to where I started getting away from the conventional, you know, superhero artist that was out there. I appreciate it. I like it, but these guys have something different. Yeah. There's something special with what
there's some emotion in that artwork. There's something different. Like Sam
Mark
Keith and Peter David did that little run on Marvel Comics Presents, that Wolverine story.
Yes.
I loved it. I have a shirt of that one cover where he's just huge and all. He has like those spiraling threads coming off his suit and stuff.
And he says he couldn't draw those spirals again if he tried. He has no idea how he did it. It's just something that came out at the time. You remember those issues were so freaking good. The Marvel Comics Presents, because I think it was 100 where it had Wolverine crushing. I think it was Ghost Rider on the bottom.
Yeah, Ghost Rider's holding up the 100. Yeah,
and then you turn it around, and it's the opposite. It's, you know, Ghost Rider smashing up on him. You got one on the spinner rack? No way. No way. Yeah, yes. Crushing him down, and then you turn it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I love these books, dude. Yeah. That one where he's just grabbing at that chick's ass. Yeah.
That's so bonkers.
I love these books, dude. So wait, the other side, let me see the other side of this one. But yeah, and dude, Sam Keith, I never knew what he looked like. I had an idea in my head just based off of his artwork. Yeah, you're right. Is him actually crushing it now?
Yep. That one.
That's awesome.
That's so genius. You know, there was, I think it was issue 85 where it was the first Cyber.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, that's the one. It was right around there. Tim Vigil actually did art in there.
Oh, what? That's crazy.
He was kind of uncredited. So there's actually there's something within it. If you open up the first page, it wasn't Tim. It has Tim Vigil in there, but it was like one of those uncredited. Somehow it was he wasn't really. I'm trying to remember how it went. Alan, my friend Alan, knows all about the whole story behind it. But every time that book comes up, we see it. He just pulls it right out and then flips it over and just kind of points right there. Look at that. So
that's awesome. I love Cyber. I love that issue. It was like a 2-issue thing. Whereas that whole thing was the whole blood hunt thing. Because Cyber was like the only person that Wolverine was ever afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's that fight where Wolverine like bites his eye out of his face. Like they don't show it, but he like bites his eye out. Yeah.
That's insane, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I never knew what Sam Keith looked like, but he did a signing with us at Torpedo, and he's just like this little meek dude. Like he's just like this
I pictured
kind
him
of
with
frail looking guy.
With like glasses and like just a mustache. I'm sure I've seen pictures of him, but yeah, I was like you forever. I had an image of what he looked like, but I didn't know.
He's just this little meek dude that wears like the same clothes every day. Like not the same like clothes, but like he probably has like 5 pair of everything.
Right.
Who tells me like the only time he leaves his house is to get his mail. Most of the time he's at home looking at porn.
Or to get an Arby's, beef and cheddar,
Yeah. The guy, he's
potato cakes, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just the most wild artist. He's so unique and special,
Yeah, he is. I mean, those are the ones. Kelly Jones, Simon Bisley was a huge one for me going through it.
Yeah, Lobo or like that Batman and Judge Dredd issue.
Yeah. Oh, that just it was such different art that just it took me out of my because in the through the 90s for the most part I was like a Marvel guy. I was a Marvel teenager, and then through my 2000s I really turned into DC. This big turn into DC, and then the 2010s we really became more independent with a lot of stuff. I would dabble in all of it during those timelines.
Sure.
But I found myself the majority of what I was buying was those. And then now I'm at a point where I don't buy a whole lot of new books. When I do, I go to Ralph, over at Alternate Reality.
Is that where your pull box is these days, or do you even have a pull box?
Been there since 1995. I've been a customer with Ralph as a pull box customer. And I don't buy a lot of new books. When I do, I bring them home. Some of them I'll read, some of them I'll more skim through, but unless Ralph says this is really good and you really need to read it, then I'm probably like, all right, I'll get it and put it in my pile and touch it eventually.
How accurate is he with his reviews or his
Ralph is as dead on as I've ever known.
Okay.
If Ralph tells me something's good and to get it, then in the 30 years I've been a customer of him, maybe 2 or 3 times where I'm like, I don't know what he's saying, but okay, he's drinking the Kool-Aid of this character for whatever reason. But for the most part, Ralph knows his stuff, and he reads pretty much every book that comes out.
Dude. He's a maniac of that in a good way. Like you need to be like that as a comic book retailer. Like if you're gonna be doing new books, like you got to know what's up.
You have to, otherwise you're going to be lost when your customers ask you, "What's this story about?" You're not going to regurgitate, what someone else in the store was just here
Yeah.
telling someone else what it was about. You don't want to regurgitate that.
No.
Read
And
yourself.
I could tell as a customer, like, oh no, you're just telling me, like, you didn't read it. Like, you're just kind of like hemming and hawing around it, like you didn't really read it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you saw that on a YouTube video.
You can tell that someone's faking it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I love Ralph's store, dude. I love his store. I go there. It's on the other side of town for me, but I try to go when I can. Because he has, like, not only does he have like the weirdest layout of a comic book store, like it doesn't make it makes sense. Like I understand what he's doing. Whereas like this rack it's all done by like creators or characters. Like this rack is Alan Moore. This rack is Superman. This rack is Spider-Man. Like it's not like ABC. It's not like Image over here, DC over here. It's all mixed together. But it's like here's like Alan Moore. Here's like J.H. Williams III. Here's Batman stuff. Here's Spider-Man stuff. Here's X-Men stuff.
Yeah.
But he also is like the only guy that carries like cool indie stuff. Like that hardcover trade paperback selection. He always has like the craziest stuff back there that nobody else carries.
And the stuff, and he reads it all.
Yeah.
He reads it all. There's almost nothing that comes out that Ralph doesn't read unless he really doesn't like that particular artist's, viewpoint of something. But for the most part, he reads almost everything,
And he's got good dollar boxes, like real good dollar boxes.
Yeah, he does. I've found so much in there, and there's stuff I find that I'm like, Ralph, you can't sell this for $1. Okay, this is a $50 book. So, here, take it.
Here, mark this up, bud. Yeah.
He'll price it at $15 and put it back out. I'm like, hey, all right, well, at least you didn't sell it for $1, man. So, for me, it's weird for me, like, as a guy who I didn't start selling comic books until like 2017. It was just something me and my brother got into.
Yeah.
Before then, if I had one copy of a book for myself, I'm happy. I'm fine. But when you start, when you get into the selling world, like I did, and then you're finding books, you go to your certain places to find it, and you would go to comic book stores and do your city tour, once a month or whatever it was. And I did that for the longest time. I would find back issues that, I would eventually want to sell at some point. Yeah. But for the longest time, for 20, 25 years, I didn't do that. I just bought for me. I always bought for me. And even now I buy for me first. But I have these rules. Like if I go to my friends' stores, like if I go to, Rob's store, Brandon's store, Jay's store, Ralph's store, Brian's, if I find a book that I'm like, oh crap, this is a $50 book and he's got it in here for $2, I cannot take that book and buy it and then turn around and sell it, because it hurts me to do something like that. So I just bring it up. I'm like, hey, look, found this in your back issue bins. You might want to look it up and price it. You can get a little bit more out of it than $2.
That's good of you. That's fair. Yeah.
Now, if I go to a yard sale, if I go to a swap meet, if I go to a flea market, if I go to, some random garage sale that's doing it, that's your job to have done your stuff.
Right.
Unless you don't know what you're doing, if you're some lady who's, and I've been through that before. I'm sure you have too, where you go to a place and, oh, my husband just passed away and he has all of his comic books and I don't really care. I don't know what they're worth. All of a sudden I'm like, listen, you need to take a moment, because what you have here is extremely valuable. And I cannot take these from you for $10 each when the values of them are, several $100s each. I mean, you've got to do something more. You know?
You can give her fair money. Like this is a $500 book. You have it marked at $2. I'll give you $100. I'll give you like $200 for it or something. Like you got to be a little more fair with it or anything. Or like you said, let them know, like, hey, you need to check this out yourself. Like,
and even then, most of the time, they'll be like, you're talking with them for a while, and they're like, honey, it's okay. I'd rather it go to you, so it's okay. Just give me $500 for the whole box. And I'm like, ma'am, you understand this box is probably like $5,000 worth of books. So she's like, it's okay. It's going to a nice place, a nice young man. I want you to have it. I'm like, I'll give you $500 now. I'm going to go get some more cash and I'll come back and give you a little bit more. I can't do it and then have a good conscience and have, some semblance of integrity still holding, knowing that I just did a collection like that, and then I walk away going, oh, I can't wait to sell this stuff.
And there are people who are like that, and like you're that's good karma for you to treat somebody like that. They were like, hey, here's $500. I'm gonna come back and give you more. I'm doing a good thing. There'd be other people that would try to talk her down from whatever price she has on them. Like this is a Hulk 181, really nice condition, and she has like $8 on it. They'd be like, yeah, would you take $2 for this? Like, they would try to talk them down. Yeah.
Just so they can,
like that, dude.
Yeah, just so they can post, check out what I got today, for $2, but I don't know how people can do that. And it's, the karma thing has always worked for me and my brother. It's always worked for me in my whole life. So, I don't spend a lot on big books. I'll buy collections, and pay, fair price for them. And sometimes there's just happens to be stuff in there. I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe this was in here. And I've
overlooked it when you're flipping through it or something. Yeah.
The Holy Grail book for me that I've wanted this book for 30 years, well, probably close to 30 years probably close to almost 30 years that I cannot find this book. And it's a first print of Bone #1.
Okay.
By Cartoon Books, Jeff Smith. I remember when that book was coming out and I was reading it, and I just immediately fell in love with this book. And I would read it to my son at, later on when, the big one collection came out, and I would read that book to him. And that book just meant so much to me, and what my son being able to read him, his first comic book was Bone, and just teaching him about the Great Red Dragon and Rose and, the phony Bone characters, and Smiley, and just talking to him about it. That's a book that one day it's just going to pop up in a collection, first print with the Bone in red. That's how it's the first print.
Okay.
And just one day it's just going to come along, and I'm going to lose my head over it, and I'll probably break down and start crying because it's just a book that I've wanted for so long, but it's a, $800 to $1,500 book. And me being a father, a husband, I can't justify for me to spend that much money on a comic book just to satisfy,
right,
my insatiable checklist appetite that I have. That's
the same thing I tell my wife. I tell my wife that because I always find big books that I want, and she's like, you should get it. And I'm like, no, I don't, because or what it is if I want a big book, I'll sell some stuff.
Yeah.
To get it. Right. And my wife's like, you shouldn't do that. Like, you should keep your stuff and get the book. And I'm like, no. Like, I don't want money to come out of house money so that I can buy some big book and we can't pay the mortgage this month or something stupid like that.
Right.
I'm not putting us out for a comic book.
Because you had to have 2000 AD #2,
Right. I don't need the first appearance of, Judge Dredd. That if I need it, I got a bunch of stuff.
I love the fact that you knew what that was. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah. But yeah, it's just, I'm the same way. It's like I'm not going to hurt my family for a comic book, And I'm trying to get into your game, dude. I'm trying to get into the vending side of things myself now. So.
Oh, that's what you meant when you texted me that. Oh, all right.
What did I text you? We'll be talking about vending eventually? Yeah.
Yeah, you said vending eventually. In my mind, I was thinking you were taking, Gabe Loves 90s Comics and then turning that into, doing more with that. And so that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, this is just my YouTube side. This is just my fun. This is just to hang out and talk to people like you. Because I want to that's what this whole comic shop talk thing is I want to talk to people who work in comic book stores or who work on the other side of the table, like vendors like you and stuff like that, because I love doing that. Like when I used to do that with Torpedo, or when I would travel and do stuff, or working behind the counters at Maximum or at Torpedo, like that's the best. Working in a comic book store is like the coolest job I've ever had, I think.
Yes.
But it doesn't pay the bills. Like it pays the bills. I always made a lot of money working there, but there's not much of I left because there's not much of a future.
Right.
Like, there's no 401k, there's no benefits, like that kind of stuff, right?
And all of us as comic book collectors, our dream is to own a comic book store.
Right.
I know several people that own comic book stores, and it's just they're fine, but they're never going to go to that other level because that's just not where it's at with comic books.
Right.
You have to get these massive. You have to follow the torpedo model of things, but in order to do that, you got to have a cash flow to buy those big books, to get those big books. Most of us don't have that. We have our personal collection that we're now going to take and then price and then put it out in our comic book store and then, build up a
buy more stuff off of it and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
And then as collections come in, you start to, do those collections and to build off of that and to build off of that. But to say you're going to be rich owning a comic book store,
no,
I've never known it to be true.
No, because I don't want to do it full time at this point. Like I have my job. I have, my job gives me a lot of free time, and I could do vending and I could hunt collections and stuff like that. But I don't want to make it a full time thing because I don't want to have employees. I don't want employees. I don't want rent and utilities.
You follow what we do then.
Stuff like that.
Exactly.
I just want to do shows, local shows, maybe do a little bit of traveling and stuff like that. But, I've been buying small collections I find around town, which is impossible, dude. I don't know how you find collections. Like I look on Facebook Marketplace, I look on OfferUp, I look wherever, and the stuff I see on there is people who are selling their collection. Like they're like, not their collection, but something out of their collection. Like, oh, I know this is $100 book and I want $100 for it. Or something crazy like that. Like it's like I've never found comic books ever at a yard sale or a garage sale. I never find them at garage sales. Never. So I don't know how you find your collections, dude.
A lot of the time is, for us, in the comic book community, there's a lot of us that just do this. Us like Dusty Attic, Will and Diana, and Gorilla Todd before he opened up a shop, and it's just hustling and looking on Facebook Marketplace and at one point Craigslist, not no more, but OfferUp, and just you come across it, you see ads here and there, and just making a phone call and just trying to be the first one. Because there's been several times where, I'll make a call and they're like, I go, yeah, I can come by this afternoon. I already have 3 people that are going to be coming over today. I'm like, what? And then I find out it was, a friend of mine that already went over there and got it. I'm like, hey, did you get anything good? Yeah, I picked up this out of it. And he's like, oh, man, hey, I'm happy for you, man. That's hella cool, But there's so many of us that kind of look for it and do it in Vegas now. We're not trampling on each other at all. If one of my friends said, hey, I'm looking at a comic book collection. If I'm not interested, I'll let you know, Barn. All right, cool. And I'll do the same. Right. I'll let you know. And if I'm not interested, hey, I'll pass you on to this person. I think they might be interested in buying it. And between me and a small circle of good friends that do this, one of us is going to end up getting the collection.
That's fair. That's what I think this hobby / weekend business hustle, whatever you want to call it, should be. Because I know comic book stores out here, bro, and you know it too. They could be cutthroats against one another. Like I don't know why stores don't help each other out more. It's a lot of like kind of backstabby stuff a lot. But with vendors like you guys, it should be like, hey, I'm going to help you out. We'll kind of, make this work out together kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't want this, but maybe Barney does, or maybe, Flavin does, or even I love Joe from Fireside.
Oh, yeah.
Fireside's awesome, bro. He's great.
Oh, yeah. Joe from Fire Force. That's like one of the sweetest in the comic book industry. But, most of the comic book stores, there's myths behind whether some of them actually like each other or not. It's usually one person doesn't like this one person.
Right.
And that's where the animosity comes into play. But, like when we do, in the holiday season, when we do the great comic crawl, I pretty much have every store in Las Vegas as part of it to do the checklist. And even though this store may not really like this store, they're all part of the community checklist to just bring something to all of us in Las Vegas, to just have an event that we could all share. And whether, this store likes this store, it's not about that. It's about bringing people, new people or same people into the stores so they can see a store they may not have seen for the first time, and maybe that becomes their new store because they've never been to a comic book store, or or to now have another store that's buddies with another that they can go to when they miss an issue, or if they're looking for back issues, they know to go to this place for back issues. The whole comic book crawl is made as a community thing, for Las Vegas, for us to celebrate the comic book community and the comic book world. And I'm fortunate because I love and I have love for everybody in the comic book industry in Las Vegas, and there's not a person that I don't like, and as far as I know, that doesn't like me. Right. But because of that and that partnership and that friendship that I have with others, that leads to us being able to do the comic crawl, where there's other places that, if it wasn't for it being a community thing, knowing that they have to be involved with something with another store, they will have nothing to do with it. Just write me out, and that's the end of it.
That's so strange, though. It
could have been from something that happened 10 years ago, Gabe. It could have been 10 years ago. They're just not over it. So, but I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is, be me and bring what I bring, for all of us, in Las Vegas with what it is that we do. So,
yeah. And that's the thing that with Vegas is we have so many stores in town for being quite a small community. Not only is Vegas not as big as people think it is, but even like the hobby itself is small. Yeah. But each store, there's so many stores, each store has its own personality. It has its own kind of like specialty. Like I said, if I wanted something weird and off the hinge, I know Ralph is going to have it. I'm going to go to Alternate Reality. He's going to have the weird stuff that nobody else is going to have. Cosmic is going to have all the cool statues. I go there for like trade paperbacks, omnibuses, hardcover, stuff like that, and a little bit of back issue digging. They're not my favorite for back issue digging, but they got a lot of back issues. Torpedo's got the high end stuff if you want to spend high end money. Maximum's like all kind of like that's a really good like new spot for new books and things like that. But every store has its own kind of like specialty involved with it, which is really cool.
They have their own vibe. You want independence, go to Ralph.
Right.
That's it. You don't need to go anywhere else. You can go other places, but if you want the biggest selection of that and of anime too, then Ralph's probably the best.
He does the manga stuff too, man. Yeah, that's right. But anyways, Barn, let you go, bro. Dude, this has been the best. Like, we need to do this again. Like, it's been an hour and a half. Like, I know we can keep going, bro. Like this, I know this is gonna end up being like a marathon. We can keep doing
this. That was an hour and a half, like that. I had something special and juicy to go over with you. I'll save it for the next time.
We'll do it again later, man. Absolutely, man. Let me end this real quick, and then we'll just talk in the background and stuff real quick.
Adios, turd nuggets.